Who is the most hated person in your workplace, and why? Far and away the most hated person in my carpentry shop is a deaf guy. I've only been working there a year and everyone thinks he is the most vindictive, hateful, selfish, paranoid asshole to walk the earth. He's easily the hardest worker there. I can tell you with confidence that he has generated the most money for the company of anyone there. He absolutely owns his portion of the shop. He has it down like clockwork and doesn't waste a second. All that being said, he throws an absolute rabbit fit whenever anything out of routine happens, and he won't look anyone in the eye, and he calls everyone lazy assholes. After a month of working there I started to learn ASL, American Sign Language. I learned a few things at home and would say anything that I could to him. Happy Monday, how are you, etc. I learned how to ask about words, how to spell things, how to sign numbers. Pretty soon he's teaching me a word a day, then it speeds up to 3 to 5 words a day. Fast forward a year and we talk constantly. What I learned is that he gets mad because he's been passed up for promotions because he's deaf. People don't tell him when overtime is available, which he wants. He sees people coming in late and still taking breaks and he never breaks those rules. He gets mad that no one ever tells him about new machines being bought or new jobs coming in or the gossip. I unknowingly became his liaison. He stopped fighting with people. He's able to get all of the jokes we tell at lunch because I can translate. He can joke back through me. Other people are learning sign language as time goes on. What I don't get is why no ever gave him the benefit of the doubt. It would suck to be deaf and never know what was going on. Some people have worked with him for 15 plus years and no one ever learned any ASL. He thanked me recently for being a good friend. He said things are a lot better now. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. Edit. One guy in the shop did learn some sign language. All of the insults and swear words. The update is below. Fact. Let's call him Danny. Danny doesn't wash his hands. Danny for some reason feels the need to not use a spoon to put in more coffee in the communal coffee maker. No, he's gotta use his hands because people need to quit being afraid of germs. Danny takes a sheet, comes out to join everyone in a company lunch, and sticks his sheet germ hands down the bucket of KFC to get a piece at the very bottom. Danny came in hungover one day and just slept 8 hours at his desk. Danny doesn't flush. Danny loses every form of paperwork given to him. Danny is an asshole. Danny is apparently too good of an engineer to fire. Danny's asshole cat jumped in his car one day and came to work. Danny's cat Clark has been here a year now and has become a feral asshole. Clark did take care of the rat problem though. Clark rolls with a random pack of coyotes now. Fact Danny. Fact Clark. Clark is too scary for animal control to take away. Fact. Post hours meeting. JFC. My inbox has never been more full of messages and requests for more info. Danny was a no-show today. Something about being sick, but I'm fairly sure the gout finally got him. Ours didn't mention my post, only reminded us about proper personal hygiene at the office, since it continues to be an issue. Since I didn't post any company info, I'm somewhat in the clear. Help me. They do want me to note that no one is unfireable. Also, in the future any complaints about anything going on in the workplace should be directly discussed with ours, to be handled in the appropriate manner. Fight Club is apparently not an option. Danny will be given the same rundown we got once he comes back. He did text me a picture of his middle finger. Also, HR has talked to him twice and a third infraction will lead to appropriate actions being taken. Once again, Fight Club is not one of those options. Apparently 90% of my coworkers are editors. Explains why we don't get shit done. My boss couldn't contain his laughter when he read through the comments. Boss told Danny if he wasn't such a savage we wouldn't be in this situation. Clark was last seen about a week and a half ago by the night security who says he saw a pack of coyotes out front, followed by Clark. This was confirmed by security footage of the front gate. I work near the outskirts of town. All I'm allowed to say about where I work, I'm being watched. Can't post security footage since our company logo is on both sides of our gate. I've asked Danny for a picture of Clark before he decided to be a feral asshole, and he sent me a picture of his ass crack. He's a grey Maine Coon with a portion of his tail hair missing that won't grow. Clark has a brother, who I'll call Lewis, who lives with me as of a few months ago. Nothing like his whole brother 10/10ths great to pet and give belly rubs to. The 15th of November 16 Danny showed up, has the gout, was pissed. Boss grilled him, all employees grilled him, we gave him a basket of hand sanitizer and sheet. Clark still hasn't been spotted. Enough with the violent PMs. That is not how you slide into my DMs. Final note, Clark/Grumpy Cat 2020. Make America stalk its prey again. He is no longer working with us, but he is still legendary to this day. Since he is most likely on Reddit, I will refer to him as Magoo. Magoo and I both started at the same time in a science-based company, but in different departments. He looked really good on paper, well qualified, and interviewed fairly well, from what I was told. I sat next to him, and we began chatting. It became pretty apparent that something was off on him. He would giggle to himself during the conversation, and immediately began one-upping me in the conversation, saying how he had something better, or knew more about what we were talking about. Not a big deal. I work with scientists and engineers, being one myself, and odd personalities are the norm. Within a day or two, I knew that I was not going to enjoy my time with Magoo. Our office has a tradition of getting bagels and cream cheese every Friday as a sort of reward for a long week. I get in at 8:30, Magoo is already munching happily on a loaded bagel, and giggling to himself. Not a big deal either. I get my bagel, start working, Redditing, and head to the bathroom an hour later. I can see as I'm walking that Magoo is eating another bagel. Not cool, but I've gotten to myself from time to time, if there are plenty left. 15 minutes later, I see Magoo eating another bagel, and trying to sneak off with it. I confront him, and tell him you can't eat 3 bagels before some people have had one. He brushes it off, and tries to pretend like he didn't know he had done it. This guy's in his 30s by the way. Magoo's interests were wide and varied. Think being a part of esoteric clubs, makes his own gaming computers and brags about it. The worst part of being around him is that he takes over every conversation he is in, and he is in every conversation. He will literally walk up to a group of people, no matter what they are talking about, laughing like he heard something funny, and then interject with how he knows more about it, or is an expert at it. It got to the point that we would avoid him at all costs, or just leaving when he came around. Didn't matter to Magoo. He would follow you and talk about his knowledge anyway. Magoo is also a closed-eye talker. You know who I'm talking about. The kind of person who will smugly assume he knows more about what you are saying and will close his eyes and turn his head away in an exasperated measure of I can't believe I have to explain this manner. He began to get on everyone's nerves, but began getting bolder with his interjections. He interrupted the CEO of our company during an important meeting to correct him on a detail that didn't matter. The balls on this guy. He also began changing login details, since he knew a good bit on computers, for shared machines for sequencing and changing protocols without getting approval. He ordered over $10,000 in materials for an experiment that wasn't authorized to answer something he had been wondering about, not even related to what we were doing. The last straw is when he started insulting people if they disagreed with him, including his boss. At this point, most people wouldn't even respond to him when he spoke to them, and most people just left when he came around, even in mid-sentence. How he lasted 3 months is beyond me, but the day he was fired, we were told to stay out of the offices in case he did anything drastic. After he was gone, he asked his boss for a reference. I still like to check up on Magoo every now and then. He is still unemployed and probably has no idea why. Edit. Magoo, if you are reading this, I hope that you are doing well. Please know that I tried hard to like you, but you need to let other people say things, even if they are wrong, without telling them what you know. I also hope that you find a job. No person deserves to feel unwanted, or that they don't deserve success. Hopefully you can reevaluate how you treat people and have a few slices of humble pie. You have some cool hobbies, even if you told me about them with your eyes closed. S constantly eats throughout the day, but to do this, he must take several trips to the canteen to acquire food. But on the way to the canteen it starts with at least a 20-minute cigarette break. Complains heavily if anyone asks him to do anything as he is always too busy. We have flexi time at work, so he gets in early, and on the odd time I have turned up early the office lights are always off. Apparently prefers working in the dark. becomes deeply offended at any change in the office, and the temperature must be kept cold as he can't work if it's too warm. Can't stand the coffee addicts in the office as they need caffeine, but drinks several bottles of Coca-Cola every day. I have been in the office now for nearly 2 years, still yet to work out what he actually does. He smells, he's sweaty, and when he sneezes he wipes his nose with his hand and cleans it off on the desk. I hate S, and so do the rest of us. Edit. I have no problem with working in the dark, but as an ed department I feel it is better to do work with eyes open and the PC on, and not having the office door locked. I don't mind wearing my coat all year round in the office, gloves in winter, but I do feel a compromise could be met. I'm not asking for a sauna. My office has the classic argue about anything guy point. I mentioned once that I had recently rewatched the movie Equilibrium. This guy butted in and announced that the movie actually sucks. Spent about 10 minutes saying the effects were lame, the costumes were lame, futuristic movies are so overdone, obviously not knowing this movie came out 15 years ago, then ends it by saying I haven't actually seen it. I'm just saying, this election season has been a nightmare. Guy went out of his way to try to find out who everyone was voting for, and if someone wouldn't tell him, he'd make an educated guess and then argue and question their voting choice that he himself decided. He vehemently debated the result of the election and ended up exposing that he in fact had no idea what the Electoral College does and also had never even heard the term gerrymandering. Not something I would expect everyone to be knowledgeable on, but probably don't start a massive office fight if you don't know the basics of the argument. Point also mentioned that LGBT rights aren't that big of a deal to an LGBT office member. The best moment had to be when one coworker decided to mess with him and posted a warning about the dangers of dihydrogen monoxide. The coworker told this guy that illegalizing this dangerous chemical was important. Dihydrogen monoxide can suffocate people, is found in acid rain, etc. Guy totally agreed and said Trump would handle it. Point edit. Remembered something else. A coworker and I were talking about Star Wars and how technically you wouldn't hear the ships / explosions / lasers, etc. because it's outer space, but who cares because it's awesome. Guy listens in and challenges us, saying of course you would hear them. Tried to explain that there's no sound in space, but he didn't want to hear it. Point he was like, well, what if there was an explosion? Me, it would be silent. Point him, but what if the sun exploded? Me, it would be silent. In space, there is nothing for the sound to vibrate off of. Point him, I'm pretty sure you could hear the sun exploding. Current job is a bore on this subject, so we'll go to my last point. Tim was the guy everybody hated. He was lucky we all felt bad for his quirks. Every working day Tim punched in exactly at 8 AM and out at 5 PM. In between those hours you were lucky if you saw him working. It was because of him we no longer had Secret Santa during the holidays, catered monthly lunches, or holiday bonuses. Secret Santa Tim was quite frugal, and when I say quite, I mean he was cheap as fuck. Every employee in the company voted the dollar amount they wanted to spend on another for the Secret Santa. The average dollar amount came out to $50. Tim's vote was $1. I recognized his sheety handwriting. Everyone, including Tim, agreed to spend around that dollar amount. When it came down to opening presents, it was clear everybody went over that amount. Tim received a pair of tickets to a Dodgers baseball game plus some Dodgers t-shirts and a hat. The tickets were face valued at $175 each. His Secret Santa had season tickets and gifted him a pair from his set. When it came down for Tim to give his gift, I wondered who he gotten. He got his desk buddy. Jess was the sweetest girl in the office. She worked with everyone and was the most polite, respectful, soft-spoken human I've ever met. When she opened her gift, I wanted to die. He got her lingerie. Not just any lingerie, crotchless, matching bra and without any tags. Jessie was 5 feet 9 inches and athletic. Whoever those clothes were for was someone athletically challenged. Ours had a heyday with that one point catered lunch. The last Friday of every month featured catered lunch within short workday. It always revolved so that things never felt redundant. Mexican, Italian, BBQ, pizza or Chinese. Tim religiously ate Mexican food. When the chosen Mexican restaurant was catering, Tim was first in line to eat. He would wait around the time clock near the patio doors so that when 1 p.m. hit, his hand was being scanned with 1 foot out the door. When it was any of the other catered meals, he made it known that he was irritated that so and so were catering. May 2013, I got to choose what we were having, and I chose Italian since my birthday was the following day. Tim was seriously pissed about having Italian food. Mind you, for the next 2 months the choices were Italian or Chinese, so Mexican was nowhere near the table. Eventually everyone heard a bit of his ramblings, and then it hit the ears of the company chairman. They called the heads of every dept in and asked about Tim's feeling and how long this had gone on for. I explained how Tim was a quirky guy, but for some reason only liked Mexican food. Next morning there was an announcement that we were no longer having company lunches. This meant no more going home at 2 p.m. and no more lunch for the office. Everyone was pissed. Holiday bonuses. This is what got the ball rolling for Tim's demise. Our company manufactured steel products and shipped them to different distribution warehouses. Nobody in our office worked in sales, so nobody had commission-based pay. Every year before our 2-week holiday vacation we received our last checks for the year and a bonus. The bonus was a percentage of the profits divided up between all employees. It was great. Who doesn't like more money right before the holiday season? Tim, that's who. This particular year had been a bad one for us. Profits were down 10% due to one of our distributors filing bankruptcy. So our bonuses were not as big as before, but they still equated to a paycheck's value. Everyone, other than Tim, was ecstatic they were still receiving bonuses. When Tim opened his check, hell broke loose. I've never seen someone so pissed about a bonus check in my life. First he goes around asking everyone how much they received. We all received the same amount, but nobody wanted to show him their check. Then he tries to talk to his desk mates about receiving less than last year, and this is where it goes downhill. Everyone he asks tells him they received more than last year's amount. You can see where this is going now. After everyone's gone for the day and a few of us stay to clean up the holiday party mess, Tim rushes the company owner and lays it into him on why he received a lower bonus, that he feels undervalued. He should be asking for a raise. We can hear him yell through a closed window to the outside. The holidays pass, and Tim is as happy as ever. All dept heads get called into what seemed like a normal Monday after the holidays meeting, and we are told the yearly bonus structure will no longer continue at our branch. Everybody knew why. A month later Jess finally got him fired, after bringing light to several sexual harassment instances revolving around him. Last I heard he moved to Kansas, to live closer to his family. Edit. Wow. This really took off with a few people. Before the new year I was already in exit plan mode after an acceptance at a larger company. I made it clear with the owners months beforehand, so they weren't shocked. March 2014 I officially left, which was about a month after Tim. Many of my coworkers were older than me and could basically be my parents if you looked at the ages, so I didn't have an outside work relationship with anyone. However, I Facebook messaged an old coworker who's still there to get some updates for you guys. I'll update once I have new information. Update. So looks like everything is back to normal and the company chairman reinstated all the perks. Right after Tim was fired, the department heads had a meeting with the chairman and concluded Tim was the issue to all of this. The chairman agreed to reinstate the bonus structure, and now, when Mexican food is ordered, there are always leftovers to take home. Bonus story. The coworker I talked to was called by a competing company as a reference for Tim a few years back. It just so happened that he answered the phone and worked the appropriate department. After a few weeks the hiring agent called him back thanking him for his answers and that Tim didn't make it through the probationary period. He was the worst candidate they had that was most qualified on paper. He didn't believe Tim lasted all the years we had him. In the 2 weeks he was there, he managed to piss off every coworker there. Amazing Tim. Managers like that can kill an otherwise good team. We have one of those, and it's so difficult and frustrating to do anything at work. I couldn't tell you one positive thing he thinks about the team, because the only comments he'll make are about what we are struggling with. If we accomplish a lot in one area, it's swept under the rug and never mentioned. In his opinion, accomplishing a lot is what we are supposed to be doing, so it doesn't deserve a compliment. If we have a weak spot somewhere else, It's considered a huge crisis and that's the only thing he focuses on. Case in point, we had an unexpected visit from corporate. Now, there are some small details that we struggle with on a regular basis, but our team works hard to make the store clean and welcoming. He happened to be the only manager on duty, and apparently it went so horribly that there was nothing positive they could say about our store. It was incredibly discouraging. Several months down the line, they came in again, while I was the mod. I made sure to showcase our best aspects, while discussing how we were fixing any issues that came up. They were so impressed with our store, they brought back a reward for us. I have to wonder how much of the first visit was a lie. And if it really did go so terribly, I have to wonder if it's not because the other manager painted us in such a bad light. Want to know the kicker to all this? Before the team got the reward, he decided he was the only one who deserved it. So he stashed it in his office to share between him and his select favorites. I decided this was bullshit, so I went into his office and handed everything out while congratulating the team on a job well done. Not a specific person so much as a group of them, but in the factory world it is generally the temps. They are always an interesting group of characters. Our current batch includes a quiet dude who is a good worker and decent overall, but quietly sings and mumbles to himself, and always has a vacant, dead look in his eye. No one hates him, he's just kinda spooky. A girl with a wonky eye, who openly tells people she's on dope, and doesn't have custody of any of her kids, and randomly interjects personal questions while you're working with her. Always on her phone, against factory policy, and wanders away into the bathroom for long periods of time. A passive aggressive terror of a lady who's catty towards all the other girls, then plays dumb and cock teases guys into doing her work for her. Honorable mentions who were Sheetkand, Wolverine, a middle-aged balding guy who wore button-downs with torn-off sleeves, with the top buttons open to expose his manly chest hair. Total perv who hit on 18-year-old me constantly and then called me a slut. Would touch the operator's machine settings, which is grounds for a shanking. Some 20-something kid who was being let out of prison to work. He wore this shirt that said "Cool story babe, make me a sandwich" every faking night. He never shut up, claimed he had his own business, and would tell stories about how he ended up producing 7 children by different women, while still currently married to the first one. Edit, added more detail. Memory lane right here. Let me tell those of you who scrolled down this far about Supervisor Chef Bob. We all hated Bob. Bob wasn't a team player, you see. When we were swamped, everyone would skip breaks, except for Bob. We would all help whoever was falling behind, except Bob. Bob did his own thing and left you to the wolves. Bob always pointed out what you did wrong or what you'd lazily. Eventually Bob started helping me a little when I would fall behind. I thanked him once for grilling a steak for one of my orders, and I made the mistake of telling him that steaks are my weak spot. I had trouble overcooking them. For weeks after that he arranged it, so I cooked every damn steak. Time passes and I become, not to brag, one of the competent employees. I noticed one night that Bob was jumping in to help me whenever I fell behind. He would even ask what I wanted him to cover. Once I was working with him, and I noticed Brenda was falling behind. Brenda is always falling behind. I was clear for a minute, and told Bob that I was going to go help Brenda for a minute. Bob said no, Brenda has to learn how to do her job. She won't learn if we always do it for her, and I saw Bob in a whole new light. He wasn't lazy, he just wanted us all to know our jobs. Once he knew anyone could handle anything, then he was quick to help out. He admitted to me once, very bad at remembering who had taken breaks. He had no problem covering for a break, we just had to ask him instead of waiting forever for him to tell us to go. Now, Bob is gone. I was genuinely sad to see him go. Standards have fallen, and Brenda still is incapable of doing her job. She isn't hated, she's dreaded. This is the story of the HP crazy cat lady. So I work in a Best Buy Esquire store, and we have company reps come in to teach us about product. We had this woman from HP. She came in on every other Friday. The moment she walked through the door I knew, because my eyes would water. She smelled like she bathed in cat piss. She would have piss stains on her shirt. She was mid-30s, and so thick you couldn't tell if she did or didn't have an Adam's apple. One time she had cat sheet on her collar rubbing against her neck. I almost vomited. We would be forced over by our managers to talk to this woman. It was bad. We would make jokes to new people about asking her out and trying to sleep with her. One newbie actually did it, and he said he puked on his food. He couldn't take the smell. Fast forward a few months, I get a customer interested in a 75-inch TV. But he won't buy because his cat will knock it over. He also smelled hardcore of cat piss and had cat food in his pocket. He told me he had purchased 3 cats. He had 26 on his property. He was sheltering and feeding them. He was also single. I actually gave him the HP lady's work number. Turns out she had been fined and lost her house and her cats. What we thought was maybe 4 turned out to be 58 cats on her property. 58. She lost her job due to complaints. I have no idea where she is now, but I hope they got married, bought a farm, and have 10,000 cats. My faking time to shine. He's not here anymore, thank God, but I think it still counts. Let me tell you about this stain on society's ass. For reference, I work in a troubled youth therapeutic center. Refused to get a key to the gate, which led to half of all of the buildings, of which he most commonly went to. When asked about it, he would just say, that's what I have you guys for. Frequently late clocking into work, fell asleep on the job almost every night. People in charge couldn't get rid of him because we're so horribly understaffed, and the kids liked him. When confronted by other staff, he got defensive and told us to mind our own damn business. Rarely ever wore the company uniform. He almost always wore douchebaggy sports jackets over a long sleeve shirt. Who knows if he actually had the uniform on underneath. One night I was paired with him, and I'd had enough. I wrote him a note so as not to alert the kids as to what was going on. That said, if he fell asleep, that I would report him to our supervisors, and he literally began verbally abusing me, calling me a piece of shit. I have no life. I should just kill myself now. etc. Fuck you, Jordan. Nobody misses you. E. I've got several more bad coworker stories. If anyone wants more, just let me know. Our company basically gives anyone without a criminal record a shot at working, so it's extremely hit or miss. I'm late to the party, but I must tell you all about this magnificent bastard with whom I work. For starters, just the sound of his voice is exhausting to hear. It is a combination of Walter Matthau, Edward G. Robinson, and Norm Macdonald. Top that with a Midwestern accent and the fact that he mumbles all the time, and you've got a recipe for super annoyance. But I'm not one to hate a motherfucker just because of the way he talks. So I'll move on to the stupid shit that comes out of his mouth when he does open it. Everything he says is either astonishingly inappropriate, sexual in nature, or antagonizing. Some of his highlights include talking about how his girlfriend, whose actual existence is speculative, makes his cork as hard as a diamond, asking our customer service personnel, or ladies, if they'd also be getting laid on Valentine's Day. Conjecturing that one of the ladies who was suffering from a migraine should get some such, repeatedly calling everyone slackers in an attempt at being facetious, because he's still somehow ignorant to the fact that everybody hates him, bragging about being runner-up in a Songwriter of the Year contest that is sponsored by VH1 Save the Music and an obvious scam. Bragging about his previously owned business, which failed because he is an alcoholic, and that's nothing compared to the faked up sheet he drunkenly puts on his Facebook, which isn't private. We are certain he has incriminating evidence against our owner, because a normal business would have fired him out of a cannon into the sun. The guy isn't hated. It just astounds all of us how he can continue to be employed here after each and every F-up he has had. Stuff that any one of us would get fired for, most likely, but he continues to clock in each day. Examples: took a customer car that was in storage and put about 100 miles on the car. He had no permission from us or the customer to take it. The customer was not told, and we hope they didn't notice when the car came out of storage. We normally don't store cars, but this was a personal favor granted by the CEO, who is this customer's friend, or something like that. He almost set the whole one side of our workshop on fire because he decided to overload the circuits on an outlet and smoke started pouring out of it. He has detailed customers' cars for cash deals from the mall while using our shop space and supplies. He has been seen skateboarding and failing with epic falls in the workshop where guys are working on customer cars. This is all on video from security footage. He sits in this little side office that the detail guys use and smokes pot, and the smell is so strong I have walked past and wondered how customers haven't noticed. There are loads more things, but this is an idea. The only thing we can come up with is that he has something on someone higher up and will blab if not kept working here. I've done contract work with a small company on off since 2012, and the office manager was the bane of my existence. A lot of their policies and structures made sense because it was all project work. So, I had to report my hours with a description against specific projects, and I had to be thorough. I had generally kept on top of it and have a spreadsheet documenting every penny I've earned through that time for tax purposes. It also adjusted for any pay increases, and I just had to put in a date and hours, after which point it'd do all the math from what I got that week to a YTD, year to date. Total point. Now, I wasn't under a typical agreement because they usually did their payroll monthly. I had negotiated down to 2 weeks. They also did their pay with paper checks. Had a lot of problems paying me on time unbeknownst to upper management. There were 3 separate occasions where I almost cleared 2 months without pay because she couldn't get the hours reviewed on time or felt like it was more convenient to wait and lump them both together. I made regular complaints to the point that she left the boss office in tears once, and she's been on edge ever since. I never treated that woman any differently, but when it comes down to brass tacks, I expect that doing my job will result in timely pay. Another incident resulted in me complaining to the top level and having her on a 3-month watch period where everything went smoothly for once. She didn't miss a single one. Thankfully, now, that process has been automated and I can get paid on time without waiting a week for the mail. Other cork-ups, I noted a change in address via email and on the header of an invoice, yet she didn't bother double checking, and I had to be up there as. It's been kind of a big deal since I've bounced around Toronto and the GTA like 4 times in as many years. The address on a paycheck following had whiteout marks and pen corrections on the address. She sent me a rather aggressive email because I complained yet again about her problems, which ended up being a failure to communicate. Without a doubt, Lynn takes back-to-back 3-week cruises. If we get 30 days off a year, Lynn takes 62.90. Not exaggerating. Lynn has never written a coherent sentence in her life. In fact, some of her emails look like she's just pressing keys by slamming her head into the keyboard. I know this because many times when I've tried to respond to her, I've had to slam my own head against my own keyboard. I've literally seen people on LSD use better spelling and grammar. Lynn sends these emails out to clients. Lynn works remotely and does not regularly respond to internal emails. Everyone refers to her as the black hole. Nope, the only responses you'll get from Lynn is when one of her email chains accidentally get sent out by the boss and you find that she's been throwing you under the bus. Lynn has a fake personality. No matter what time of day it is, she always answers the phone with the loudest, fackest, "Hi, it's 9 AM on Monday morning. Please shut the fuck up." Lynn is unable to answer a direct question. If you ask her an either/or question, she'll respond yes. If you ask her a question with options A, B, C, or D where the answer can only be one of them, and let her talk long enough, she will eventually answer with each option as the answer. Lynn is pretty incompetent at her job, but that doesn't matter to the boss. When Lynn screws up a relationship with our largest partner by not responding to emails, Lynn gets put in charge of the entire Australia market and installations to boot. Lynn also travels for her job, but Lynn does not work on days she travels, even if it is only a 30-minute flight. Lynn does, however, count this time towards her 40 hours and will quit working on Friday because she's already worked her 40 hours. I could go on, but I'm getting pissed writing this, so I'm going to stop here. Lynn, if you see this, I'm sorry, but you know every one of these are faking true.